Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf, which is Pesachim Lamed Vav. We are 6 lines from the top of the Amud. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, Yachol Yotzei Adam Idei Chayvasai B'Maseh Sheni B'Yushalayim. Perhaps a person can be Yotzei, the mitzvah of Achilas Matzah, during that first night of Pesach, with matzah produced using Maser Sheni material in Yerushalayim. Talmud Loimar Lechem Oini. The pasuk describes the matzah as being lechem oini, bread of affliction, and we're going to have a drasha that oini is learned as though it would be oini with an aleph, referring to the state of aninus, when a person is an oinin after a close relative passed away, a state of grief. So this bread, this lechem, this matzah, is something, needs to be something that can be eaten at that point. Mishanecha ba'aninus. You can only be yotzei, your mitzvah's matzah, with matzah that can be eaten during that state of aninus. Yotzei, as opposed to this matzah produced with maser sheni, she'enoi nechal ba'aninus, el b'simcha, that cannot be eaten when a person is an oinen, rather only when he's b'simcha. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, the words lechem oini, bread of affliction, is indicative of the potential to eat this bread even during a time of grief, a time of aninus, as opposed to matzah produced from maser sheni, which is not suitable for aninus because, as Rashi brings, lo yachalti b'oini mimenu. The pasuk says you cannot eat maser sheni when a person is an oinen, needs to be b'simcha. Therefore, matzah's mitzvah cannot be produced with this type of material. Rabbi Akiva Omer, matzos, matzos riba. We find several references to the word matzos, and that's coming to include even this type of matzah produced with matzah sheni. Im keima tamad loima lechem oini. That's the case. What does the Torah mean, lechem oini? The lechem is meant to be bread of aniyus, of affliction. Prat le'isa shena leisha b'yayin v'shemen udvash. It's coming to exclude matzah made from an isa, a dough, produced using wine, oil, or honey. So being that was enriched, it's not just your basic ingredients of bread and water, it has the wine, oil, honey. That's no longer considered lechem oini. So according to Rabbi Akiva, lechem oini means bread which resembles a poor man's bread, made of just plain ingredients, flour and water. But once it's enriched with all these other ingredients, that's called matzah ashira, and no longer can be used for mitzvahs matzah. My time of the Rabbi Akiva. Now, why did Rabbi Akiva disagree with Rabbi Yehuda's drush, who darshan lechem oini, that it needs to be something that can be eaten be'aninas, miksiv lechem oini? Take a look at the spelling. Ayin nun yud. It doesn't say oini. Oniksiv. So you can't use it for oini, that it's something that needs to be eaten. Also ba'aninas ba'oini. It says oni. We look at the spelling, and therefore it's coming to teach us there has to be a lechem of oni, a poor man's bread, rather than referring to aninus, which is oini. Rabbi Yehuda responds, Mi karin and ani. Fine, you're right. The spelling is ayin nun yud, but how do we read it? The nekudas are oini karinan. Therefore, he prefers to use a drasha, which makes use of the kri, of how you read the word. So lechem oini is coming to teach us that it needs to be something that can be eaten when a person is ba'oini, ba'aninos. For Rabbi Akiva, fine. So what does Rabbi Akiva do with the reading? True, it's spelled ayin nun yud ani, indicating a poor man's bread. But what does he do with the fact that we read it as oini, lechem oini? Hayda karina be oini. The reason why we read it as oini, because the Shmuel is coming to teach us, as Shmuel said, Dama Shmuel lechem oini, lechem she'oinin olav dvarim harbe. The matzah is a lechem which you call out on it in its presence. Many words, Rashi says, the Haggadah, the Halal, which are recited in the presence of the matzah. In fact, we say matzah zushan, oichlem, etc. So that's what the pasuk means. Lechem oini aniya, calling out, answering words in the presence of the matzah. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, we focus on the kri, the way the word is being read. Lechem oini. So although it's an ayin, but we darshan as though it would be an aleph, and it's teaching us that the matzah needs to be something that can be eaten be'oini when a person is in a state of anidus, as opposed to matzah sheni, which is not suitable for that moment. According to Rabbi Kiva, we focus on the ksiv, on the spelling, ayin, nun yud, lechem ani, poor man's bread. It needs to be strictly flour and water. We also darshan from lechem oini, she'oinin Allah dvarim harbi. But the primary drasha is the ksiv, the way it's written, ayin, nun yud, lechem ani, poor man's bread. Secondary drasha is oini, she'oinin Allah dvarim harbi. Rather than darshan, oini, like Rabbi Yehuda, which sets the primary drasha on the way it's read rather than the way it's spelled. Let's take a look at Rashi. 6 lines, actually 5 lines from the top. So this is Rabbi Yehuda speaking, that lechem oini comes to teach us mishenechal baninas, shemuta la'oichlek she'oinin, something that a person could eat when he's in oinin. Droish bei lechem oini. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, we focus on the way it's read. So oini, and it's as though it would be an aleph, because aleph and ayin come from the same place in the expressed is very close in expression, close in sound. So although it's spelled ayin, we read it as though it would be an aleph oini, and only something which can be eaten when a person's in oinin, as opposed to maser sheni. Umaser sheni ein nechal ba'aninus t'chsiv lo yachalti b'oini mimenu. And Rabbi Kiva responds, well, miksiv oini. Does it then say oini bevav, ayin vav nun yud? No, it doesn't say that. Miksiv oini bevav detishma minei oini. It says ani. So the primary drasha is based on the spelling, which is ani. It's meant to be a poor man's bread made of simple ingredients. The fact that we read it lechem oini is a secondary drasha. She'oin olav shegoyrim olav as a halal. We read the halal va'im olav hagod. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, the primary drasha is based on the kri, the way it's read, oini, something that can be eaten when a person is ba'oini, as opposed to maser sheni. Whereas according to Rabbi Kiva, the main drasha is the ksiv, ayin nun yud, lechem of an ani, simple ingredients, and the secondary drasha is based on the reading, which is the oini, lechem oini she'oin olav dvarim harbi. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, maser sheni cannot be used for matzahs mitzvah. According to Rabbi Kiva, there's no drasha to be made, and therefore, according to him, it's kasha for matzahs mitzvah. Continues the Gemara. V'savar Rabbi Kiva, isa shenei loisha b'yayin v'shemen udvashloi. Is that so? That according to Rabbi Kiva, dough produced using wine, oil, and honey is unsuitable for matzah? V'atanya ein loshen isa b'Pesach. One cannot produce a dough on Pesach b'yayin v'shemen udvash. V'imlosh. But if he needed the dough using these materials, what happens? You need to burn immediately. Rashi explains, although may peris, such as wine, oil, and honey, doesn't have real ability to make true high quality chametz. Nevertheless, it's going to make chametz nuksha, inferior quality chametz, and that's going to happen very quickly. So according to him, it needs to be burnt immediately. There's no time to waste. You can eat it. So Rashi explains, according to them, you can make sure it doesn't become chametz. As long as you haven't noticed any signs of chimutz, go ahead and bake it, and then you're okay. V'amar Rabbi Kiva, he's coming to prove that you can go ahead and produce matzah using these types of liquids. In fact, shabbasi haisa. Rashi says shvisasi haisa, meaning I had a turn to spend Pesach serving over there Eitzel Rabbi Lezer Bishua, and what I do, v'lashti lahem isa b'yayin v'shamar dvash, and in fact I produced a dough using wine, oil, and honey, v'lo ya'amru li dava, and they didn't object. Apparently it's okay. There's no concern about expedited chimutz. Now, v'afal pi she'ein loshen mekaten boy. Continues the Brisa. even if you hold that you can't actually produce the dough using these liquids, but mekatumba you can use them just to smear the dough prior to baking. Asal Tanakama, this is in line with Tanakama, although you can't actually produce your dough with these materials, but you can go ahead and smear it. That's not going to create a chametz concern. No, it's one way or the other. The material that you can use for lisha, you can use for kituf. What you cannot use for lisha, you can't use for smearing. It's either one way or the other. Either use it all the way, or refrain from use at all. One more thing says the Braisa. V'shavan, now all agree. Shein loshen as isha b'paishren. You can't produce dough using lukewarm water, which will expedite the chimutz. Okay, so in any case, we see that according to Rabbi Kiva, producing a dough on Pesach using mei peros is fine, is okay. In contrast with Rabbi Kiva, who told us earlier, lechem ayni, it needs to be something which resembles a poor man's bread. You can't make matzah ashira. Like kasha, the answer is very simple. Habiyam tav rishon, habiyam tav sheni. Rabbi Kiva was speaking about bread, matzah, produced in honor of the first night, Leil HaSeder, where there's a mitzvah to eat be'erev toichlu matzahs. It's chayva. So that matzah has to be lechem ayni. As opposed to the Braisa, where Akiva describes himself making this matzah using all types of liquids, which is not in reference to the first night. And therefore there's no concern, because as long as it's not chametz, you're okay. It doesn't necessarily have to be lechem ayni. K'da amalu Rabbi Shua lebnei, as Rabbi Shua told his sons, yoy makama, for the first day, lo yitalusha li b'chalba, don't knead the dough in milk. But from there on in, you can knead the dough with milk. V'atanya, says the Gemara, 1 second. You can make matzah, you can make bread, which has milk. You can make milchik bread. V'atanya, we learned in the Braisa, one cannot produce the bread dough with milk. V'im lush, if he did that, kol hapas asura, the entire bread is awesome. We're concerned that he might eat it with meat. So how can one go ahead and produce bread which has milk in it? This is what he meant to say. For the first day, don't make matzah with honey. So instead of milk, it was actually honey. But going forward, produce my matzah with honey. Certainly we're speaking about milchik bread. So use milk to produce that matzah. Just as Ravina told us elsewhere that he's only going to make a small size bread. Actually, it says ke'ein tur, like the eye of an ox, meaning just a very small amount, which can be eaten very quickly. That's allowed. Hachanami here as well. Ke'ein tur, you're speaking about this size bread, which will be consumed soon after the baking. There's no concern about forgetting that it's milchik bread and having it eaten with meat. There's no concern, because it's going to be eaten fairly quickly, and therefore it will be okay. So at this point we learned that when it comes to Maaseh Sheni, Rabbi Yitzchak says, we learn from lechem oyni, it needs to be something nechal be'aninus, as opposed to Maaseh Sheni, which can only be eaten besimcha. So you cannot be yoytze your chayvas matzah if it was produced using Maaseh Sheni. According to Rabbi Akiva, it's perfectly fine, because according to him, we don't have the drasha of lechem oyni to exclude the Maaseh Sheni. Rather, lechem oyni is coming to tell us it has to be pure matzah, something which resembles a poor man's bread, made from just flour and water. And as the Gemara concluded, of course, this only applies the first night, but throughout Pesach, of course, you can eat enriched matzah without any concern. And Rabbi Kiva is following Shittas Rabbanan, who say there's no concern of chimutz, of expedited chimutz when we use meiperos, in contrast with Rabbi Gamliel, who says that if a person produces dough using these types of liquids, you have to burn it, because meiperos will expedite the chimutz process, and we're concerned about immediate chimutz. We concluded regarding producing bread with milk, if it's small in size and will be consumed immediately, there's no concern about inadvertently eating it with meat. Continues the Gemara. V'shava. Now all agree. We had a machlekes regarding using meiperis, right? According to Gamliel, you can't. According to Chum, you could. But all agree. She'ein loshen es isur b'paishin. You can't produce that dough using lukewarm water, which carries a concern of expedited chimetz. Why is it different than menachos, where they're also not meant to be chametz? We have the same chametz concern, but still we find that they would actually produce the mincha using lukewarm water. This non kol menachos nigloishes b'paishin u'meshaban shleich mitzu. So they're needed using lukewarm water, as long as he stands on guard, making sure that he doesn't notice any signs of chametz here. So why, when it comes to a person's private bread baking process, well, we don't allow a person to use lukewarm water on Pesach? Says the Gemara, im amru b'zrizin, because if this was allowed, this was said by the menachos, which are produced by who? By the Kehanim, who are diligent, conscientious, they're knowledgeable, they're careful. So over there we're not concerned. They'll make sure that it doesn't come to chimetz. Yaimru b'shein zrizin. Can you apply the same thing to an ordinary person, a non-zoris? We're concerned if we allow him to use lukewarm water, it's going to turn to chametz very quickly, without him noticing, without him paying attention. Says in Hachi, if that's the case, that by a mincha there's no concern of chimetz because of the zrizim element, miltus namilotus. Why can't we allow him to soak the grain? Rashi explains that they would take kernels of whatever it was, the chitim, the seirim, and first soak it in water to loosen it up, and then they would slightly crush it to separate the skins of the kernel, the bran, etc. This way we have pure kernel. We take it to the mill, which produces high quality flour. It says the Gemara, if we're speaking about the mincha which is produced by the zrizim, and therefore there's no concern of chimutz, why can't we allow it to be licensed, to soak it? Alama Amar B'Zeira, Amar Rabba Bar Yirmiyah, Amar Shmuel, Chitin Shel Menachos Ein Licensed in Isa. The wheat kernels of menachos, we don't soak it. We're concerned about it becoming chametz, which is asur by a mincha. So why is this different than the earlier halacha when it comes to lukewarm water? We're not concerned. Since there's reason, we allow them to use this type of water. Why is l'sisa different? Says the Gemara, Lisha bizrizin isa. The kneading process takes place with zrizim. However, l'sisa less of bizrizin. The l'sisa process takes place when the zar does it at home. What does he bring to the Beis HaMikdash? A finished product, flour, which already underwent the process of l'sisa, of grinding, and since it's a non-zoris who's involved, it's just an ordinary person, a non-kohen, we're concerned about chimutz, and therefore we understand that the chitim, which are going to produce the mincha, cannot be soaked. V'lisha me'isa bezrizin? Is that the case, that the lisha is always done by the kehanim? V'oksiv v'yatzak alei shemen v'aviyah l'kohen. And Rashi explains that there are several menachos which were actually baked before the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. Minchas mafit taner, the minchas machmas. So first they would knead it, and as we said, they could knead the dough even with paisha and lukewarm water. They would knead it, they would bake it, then they would crumble it up and add some oil, yitzika and belila, mix it with oil, and then the kohen would get involved with his kmitza. So this is learned from the pasuk. We learn from there mikmitza ve'elach mitzvahs kuna. The kohen only gets involved from kmitza and on. Limei, this teaches us al yitzika belila sheksherim chaladim. The yitzika, the belila, everything until that point can be performed by anybody, including the lisha. So how can we allow lisha to employ paishrin water, which entails a concern of chimutz, if it's going to be done by the Yisrael, who's not a Zoris? Says the more Lisha need, there is reason less. Certainly you're right. Although Lisha perhaps was not done by the Zrizin, by the Kehanim, It was done by the Yisrael, by the owner. But where was it done? B'mokim is reason Isa. It was done in the place of his reason, in the Azara. The Gehanim would look over their shoulder and give him instructions. Make sure he's doing it right. So there's reason all over the place. And therefore there's no concern of chimutz. The Omar Mar, beliluk she'er bizar. True, mixing the oil, that's kosher with azar. But chumutz l'chaymetz azar psula, but outside of the azar it's possible. So since it was done in the presence of Kehanim, who would look over to it and see what he's doing, make sure that he's doing it properly, therefore there's no concern of chimutz. When it comes to lisha, it can be done with paishan. As opposed to the lisisa, the soaking, where is that done? La foki lisisa, the end of his reason. Not only isn't it being done by his reason, it's being done by the owner. V'loi b'makim his reason, nor is it being done in the place of his reason. Because that he does at home. He brings the ready-made flour to the Beis HaMikdash after it has undergone the lisisa, therefore concerned about chimutz. So again, when it comes to using paishin, lukewarm water, so a person on his own should not use lukewarm water. But when it comes to the mincha, where the lisha is going to be taking place in the makom is reason, although not by the kohen himself perhaps, but in the presence of kehanim, that alleviates the concern, and therefore it can be done, as opposed to being loises, soaking the grain, which is done outside the Beis HaMikdash. It involves non-zrizim individuals, so we're concerned about the possibility of chimutz, and therefore the chitin of menachos should not be soaked prior to use. Says the Gemara, why is this different? The minchas oimer, the sanya minchas oimer, loisis and oisa. First they soak it, v'tsoiver and oisa, and then they pile it up to have the liquid trickle down. Didn't we just say that lesisa is not to be applied even by menachos? Tzibur shani, minchas oimer is a public carbon. As Rashi explains, the bezin's involved, and they instruct every step of the way. They're there on scene and make sure that things are done properly, and therefore there's no concern of chimutz. So your typical mincha, which is not done under the instructive bezin, we're not meant to do lisisa. But when it's a carbon tzibur and bezin's involved, there's no concern of chimutz, and therefore lisisa is allowed. Tana Rabbanan. So we learned earlier regarding Matzah Sheni, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it cannot be used for Matzah's mitzvah. We learned from the pasuk Lechem Oini, something which cannot be eaten baninos is excluded from Matzah's mitzvah. Whereas according to Rabbi Kiva, it's kosher for Matzah's mitzvah. He doesn't have that drush. Says the well, what about using bikurim to produce your matzah? Perhaps a person could be yoitze by eating matzah produced from bikurim. We learn from here, you know when matzah is kosher? When that matzah can be eaten in all your places of residence. Yotzu bikurim, as opposed to bikurim, she'ein echol m'chol mashvei seichem, ela b'Yushalayim. Bikurim can only be eaten in Yerushalayim, therefore it's unsuitable for matzah's mitzvah. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda Kessler. So he discounts Matzah Sheni and Bikurim. Rabbi Kiva Omer, I have another drasha to teach us that Bikurim cannot be used for Matzah's mitzvah. Matzah or Maror. We find that pasuk connects Matzah to Maror. The pasuk says, Al Matzos u'meroider mi'echlu. Therefore we draw a parallel. Ma Maror she'eni Bikurim. Just as Maror is not going to be Bikurim, you can't bring lettuce for Bikurim, it's only from Shiva Saminim. Af Matzah she'eni Bikurim, likewise. Matzah is only kosher if it is not Bikurim material. Let's take a look at Rashi, 3 lines from the bottom. So perhaps it can be Yaitse using matzah made from Bikurim, says Rashi, Bikurim kigoin, koin shevi lechitim, Bikurim Yerushalayim. The koin uses the chitin that was brought to him in Yerushalayim. Says Rabbi Yehuda, no, it can't be used for matzah. Why? Because b'chol mashvei seichem, and Bikurim is ein achol el Yerushalayim. Shenema lo yisucha lecha b'shorecha b'amar trumas yotcha leBikurim. So we have one pasuk which discusses maser and also concludes with trumas yotcha, which is in reference to Bikurim, because by Bikurim we have the pasuk of localfile yodecha. So the Bikurim can only be eaten in Yerushalayim. That's Rabbi Yehuda Kessler's source for this halacha. Rabbi Kiva responds with another source. Matzah mar. Hikishan akasav. Torah connects the two things. Al matzah marer. We learn from there that just as mar inevitably won't be bikurim, mar any bikurim does not. Ein mevim bikurim el mezayin minan. Dechsiv me'artzacha. Mishmach artzacha. He meant to bring the species which highlight the prominence, the significance of Eretz Yisrael, which is Shivas Haminim. But Menachos Perek Al Karbanos. So come on, Perek Magam Nagel. So bikurim are only the Shivas Haminim. So mar inevitably won't be bikurim. Likewise, matzah cannot be produced from bikurim. Continues the Gemara on the bottom line. Ima marash ein b'mina bikurim. Okay, so if you're connecting matzah to mar, perhaps let's connect it all the way. Draw a complete parallel. Just as mar is something which the species used for mar, the variety, the vegetable, cannot be bikurim. Ein b'mina bikurim. You can't make bikurim from this type of variety. Af matzah she'eina b'mina bikurim. Likewise, matzah needs to be something she'ein b'mina bikurim. That bikurim cannot be brought from this type, from this variety. So the only thing used for matzah is something which can't conceivably be used for bikurim. If that's the case, let's exclude wheat and barley. Sheyesh b'mina bikurim. Wheat and barley can be used for bikurim. Perhaps it's unsuitable for matzah's mitzvah. So if we connect matzah to mar, let's go all the way and only use something which cannot be used for bikurim. Talmud Leima matzah riba. Pasuk mentions the word matzah several times. It's coming to be marbe, making matzah from all types of grain, as long as it's not actually bikurim. So on the one hand we say, well, bikurim can't be used, but if it's not really bikurim, just a type of grain that can potentially be bikurim, that's okay. Says, how do you know? Matzahs riba. The pasuk is coming to include afilu bikurim nami. Perhaps it's going to include even actual bikurim. How do you know to split it? This yeah and this no. How did Rabbi Kiva? Indeed, Rabbi Kiva reverted. He was chayzer from this drasha, and he no longer learned this halacha from the fact that the Torah connects matzah to mar. Actually, he learned it from the same pasuk as Rabbi Saglili from B'chol Mosh V'Seichem Teichel Matzahs. You can only be yotze with matzah that can be eaten in all your places of dwelling, as we're going to see in the upcoming brayso. The Sanya. We have a brayso which learns this halacha from B'chol Mosh V'Seichem, and the Gemara proves that the man da'am of this brayso, in fact, is Rabbi Akiva. The Sanya. Yochel yetze adam yidei chavase b'bikurim. Perhaps a person can be yotze with matzah produced from bikurim. Tamad loima b'choil meishveiseichem techel matzahs. We learn matzah hanecheles b'chol meishaves. Only matzah which can be eaten all over. Yotze bikurim, as opposed to bikurim, she'eina necholim b'chol meishaves. They can't be eaten all over. Ela b'Yerushalayim. So this teaches us that matzah's mitzvah can only be produced from a non-bikurim material. If that's the case, perhaps even Maser Sheni, which had already entered Yerushalayim, it was already brought into Yerushalayim, in which case it can no longer be taken out of Yerushalayim. Rashi brings the Gemara that mechitza likloit, the mechitza of Yerushalayim is koilet. It catches the maser, can no longer be taken out. So perhaps this type of Maser Sheni, which was already present in Yerushalayim and can no longer be taken out, so now it has limited eating abilities. It can only be eaten in Yerushalayim, but not in the other Meshaves. So perhaps that also cannot be used for matzah. Yochel shani moitzi af maser sheni, right? Because the pasuk told us it needs to be something eaten all over the place. So just as we might be bikurim, which are limited to Yerushalayim, perhaps this specific type of maser sheni, which was already in Yerushalayim and is now limited, can only be eaten in Yerushalayim. Perhaps that cannot be used for matzah. Matzah is riba. Once again, we have a drasha to include even this type of matzah. Now, we have the pasuk of B'chol Mosh V'Seich, which indicates that only something which can be eaten in all your places of residence is kosher for matzah. We have a pasuk which is an inclusive pasuk, matzahs to be a marva. How do you know which way to go? Umarois l'rabis maser sheni loyti bikurim. How do you know to include maser sheni and to exclude bikurim, and not the other way around? Says the Gemara, Mar bani maser sheni sheyesh leheta b'chol meishavos. The reason why I chose to include maser sheni, that's because, technically speaking, even the maser in Yerushalayim still has an option of being eaten outside Yerushalayim if it gets tummy, as we're going to see soon. Therefore, we chose to include that. Matzos riba is applied to maser sheni because even if it's already in Yerushalayim, there's still a way to eat it outside Yerushalayim. Umoitziani bikurim, as opposed to bikurim, which is excluded. There's no way for them to be eaten outside Yerushalayim. So since we had one pasuk which is excluding, one pasuk which is including, we chose to apply the exclusion to bikurim, which are really limited only to Yerushalayim, and to apply the inclusive pasuk to maser sheni, which technically can still be eaten outside Yerushalayim. Damar blazer. From where do we know that maser sheni, which is even in Yerushalayim, can be redeemed if it became tummy? It says, when a person finds himself at a distance from Yerushalayim, and the pasuk says, you can be poided the mice. Says Rabbi Lezer, although technically the simple meaning is you're far away, you can't carry it, but we use a drasha that se'esoi is in reference to the inability to eat it. It became tummy, you can't eat it. The term se'es is in reference to eating. This was Yosef who handed portions of food to his brothers. So you see that masos is in reference to eating. The pasuk is informing us that even if he's in Yerushalayim, he's not far away, he's in Yerushalayim. But if this masos should become tummy and can no longer be eaten, you can go ahead and pay the maser sheni. So we find that maser sheni, even Yerushalayim, has the allowance to be eaten outside Yerushalayim. If it gets tummy, it can be paid it. So that explains why we chose to apply the riboy to maser sheni. This is Rabbi Yehuda speaking, as we're going to see in a minute. And you can produce matzah from maser sheni, but not from bikurim. Now, how do we know bikurim is off the map? Because b'chol mashvei seichem tells us that only something which can be eaten all over is kasha from matzah, as opposed to bikurim. Now, who is this man da'omar? Who is the author of this price? Man shamas le da'omar, b'maser sheni nafek bey. Who is the one that holds it can be yosef maser sheni? We had a machlekes in the beginning of the daf. Rabbi Yehuda says you can't. Rabbi Kiva is the one who says you could. So who is this man da'omar? Apparently, Rabbi Kiva. So the man da'omar of this price who allows maser sheni for matzah is Rabbi Kiva. And from which pasuk is he mimayit bikurim? Not from that hekesh of matzah mar, like he said earlier. Rather, from the pasuk of b'chol mashvei seichem. Shema min ha'hadabrei. Apparently, Rabbi Kiva himself was chayzer. He no longer sourced the din of bikurim from that hekesh of matzah mar, perhaps due to the kasha that we asked. Rather, he reverted over to the limud of Rabbi Yehuda Kessler. We learned it from b'chol mashvei seichem. Matzah can only be produced from something that can be eaten all over the place, as opposed to bikurim. Okay, so conclusion, when it comes to maser sheni, for matzah's mitzvah, Rabbi Yehuda Kessler says you cannot use it, because lechem oini is to be something that's nechal baninas. Rabbi Kiva says it's kosher for matzah's mitzvah, but all agree that bikurim material cannot be used for matzah's mitzvah. B'chol mashvei seichem, it needs to be something that can be eaten in all your places of residence. Now, Rabbi Yehuda also learned bikurim from b'chol mashvei seichem. Says the Gemara, why did Rabbi Yehuda have to find another pasuk to exclude bikurim? Why couldn't he use that same pasuk that he used way back in the beginning of the Gemara to exclude maser sheni, lechem oini, right? As opposed to maser sheni, which can't be eaten baninas, he could have used that same pasuk to rule out bikurim as well. The Gemara is assuming that bikurim also need to be eaten in a state of simcha. So lechem oini cannot be produced from bikurim. Rabbi Yisrael Galila says the Gemara typically lechem oini. Why couldn't he derive the bikurim limitation from lechem oini? Misha nechal ba'oini. Matzahs mitzvah can only be produced from something that can be eaten in a state of aninus. Yotzah as opposed to bikurim shei nechal b'simcha. Says the Gemara, Sabal like Reb Shimon, because he held like Reb Shimon that in fact bikurim can be eaten even when a person is an oinen. The Sanya bikurim asur in oinen, Reb Shimon matir, and therefore Rabbi Yisrael had to find a different address, a different makar to exclude bikurim from matzahs mitzvah. He couldn't apply the pasuk of be'oini because bikurim can be eaten ba'aninas. Therefore, needed the other pasuk of v'chomesh esech. So, according to Tanakama, bikurim asal oinen, according to Shimon Nitzvot, my time of the Rabbanan, t'chsiv lo yisucha lecha b'sharecha, and the pasuk continues there, utrumas yotcha. So the pasuk begins with maser and concludes with truma. V'amamar trumas yotcha is actually in reference to bikurim, elu bikurim. The iskash bikurim lemaser. So in the very same pasuk we have bikurim and maser. Maser, just as maser shein is asal oinen, as Rashi brought earlier, achalti b'oinim imenu. Af bikurim asal oinen, same thing applies to bikurim. So bikurim needs to be eaten in a state of simcha rather than aninus. Reb Shimon, he disagrees. Truma kirin rachmana, we find that the pasuk here refers to bikurim as truma siyatcha, and therefore we draw a parallel. We connect it to truma. Kid truma, ma truma muteres loinen, just as truma is mutal loinen. Af bikurim mutal loinen, likewise bikurim mutal loinen. Says the Gemara, okay, Rabbi Kiva nehi the hekesh leslie. True, Rabbi Kiva doesn't have the hekesh, which teaches us that truma, which is bikurim, is like maser, and therefore just as maser cannot be eaten be'oinen, likewise bikurim. Fine, he doesn't have that hekesh. Simcha michtav ksivabu, but nevertheless we find that the term, the reference to simcha, is stated in the context of bikurim. Tichsiv v'samachta b'chal hatoiv. So we find a reference to simcha by bikurim. So how can Reb Shimon allow an oinen who is in a state of aninus and grief to eat that bikurim? Hahul is man simcha da'asa. That pasuk v'samachta b'chal hatoiv is not in reference to the eating of the bikurim, rather to the time, the season. The zman simcha of the year, that is the time which is suitable and appropriate for bringing and reading the parsha of bikurim. A time when a person reaps his crop, he harvests his grain. It's a time of great simcha and joy. Then you turn to Hashem and express your gratitude, hakaras hatoiv. Bring that bikurim and express the gratitude by reading the parsha of bikurim and thanking Hashem. So v'samachta b'chal hatoiv is coming to teach us that during the point of the year, during that period of simcha, you meant to go ahead and read the parsha of hakaras hatoiv, of gratitude to Hashem, when you bring the bikurim. How is man simcha das? That's not. Me'atzeres v'adachag, from Shavuos until Sukkot, maybe bikurim. That's a true zman simcha, time when the farmer is harvesting his crop, he's collecting his produce. It's a time of simcha, of great joy and happiness. You bring the bikurim and you are koyer, you recite the parsha, in which case you express your gratitude to Hashem. Me'achag v'ad Chanukah, maybe v'nekoyer. However, from Sukkot until Chanukah, it's still a time of avos bikurim, but it's not the time of great joy of simcha, and therefore you bring it, but you don't read the parsha of bikurim. So the point of v'samachta b'chal hatoiv is coming to teach us that the kriya of the parsha bikurim only takes place during the time of simcha. But Reb Shimon still maintains that the actual bikurim can be eaten even when a person is in a state of non-simcha, state of aninus. Let's take a look at Rashi inside. It's right in the middle of the Amid. You'll notice the word truma. Truma muteres loinen. This is Rabbi Shimon speaking. That just as truma is mutal loinen, likewise bikurim. How do you know truma is mutal loinen? Bivamis ba'oral nafkal, and we learned it from Chalzori Yisirasa. Zoras amartel chavlaninus. Only a non-kohen cannot eat, but an oinen can. Hachagasinan simcha ksivu v'samachta b'chal hatoiv. Says Reb Shimon, that's referring to the zman simcha. Bizman ksira or lakita shadam loike tvuasai when in a state of joy and happiness, that's when we say the parsha to express our karas hatev to Hashem. When is that? Me'atzeres, beginning from Shavuos. Why not before Shavuos? Because that's the starting point. You cannot bring bikurim before Shavuos. The Snan b'Menacha is Eim Nevim bikurim koydem l'atzeres. Sheshtei halechem shel atzeres, the two lechem that we bring on Shavuos, that kicks off the bikurim season. Matir and Havas bikurim, the bikurim ikru, they're called bikurim. So that's the initiation. So shtei lechem, which are brought on atzeres, which are called bikurim, that's the initiation of the karbanos brought from the new crop. So the bikurim that we bring has to follow the shtei lechem. So you bring from atzeres up until v'ad achag, until Sukkot, shebetzeich hazman hazeh, zman lekita v'smech b'masav. That's the simcha season throughout the year for the farmer. So he brings and he reads the parsha. However, me'achag v'ad Chanukah ain't zman simcha. That's not truly a zman simcha. Ve'ein ikari. So although he brings, but without the parsha. U'machanukah ve'elach. Past Chanukah ain't zman hava. You don't bring at all. The sani b'sefri asher tavi ma'artzacha. This is the pasuk by Bikurim, which indicates that kol zman shemitzuyin al pnei artzacha. The produce needs to still be around and available. But once it's unavailable for the animals, that's not called tavi me'artzacha, and therefore it's no longer a zman hava bikurim. So in conclusion, we learned about producing matzahs mitzvah from matzah sheni. According to Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, you may not. The pasuk says lechem oini. The drasha is as though it would be oini with an aleph, something which can be eaten when a person is in a state of aninus, as opposed to matzah sheni, which cannot be eaten when a person is in oinin, ella b'simcha. Rabbi Kiva doesn't have that drasha, and therefore he says matzah sheni is roi for matzah's mitzvah. All agree that bikurim is unsuitable. We learn that from the pasuk b'chol mashvei seichem. You can only use material which can be eaten all over, all your places of dwellings, as opposed to bikurim, which is limited to Yerushalayim. And the Gemara concluded that actually Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, who learns bikurim from b'chol mashvei seichem and not from that same pasuk that he used for matzah sheni, apparently he holds like Rabbi Shimon that bikurim is nechal b'aninas, right? Because although the pasuk speaks about simcha, that's in reference to the zman simcha, but the bikurim themselves can be eaten b'aninas. Therefore, the pasuk of ba'ini, which excludes the oinen, only applies to matzah sheni and not to bikurim, which can in fact be eaten b'aninas. Therefore, he needs the pasuk of b'chol mashvei seichem to teach us that. What about producing matzah using yain, shemen, and dvash? So Gemara says, according to Rabbi Kiva, we learn from lechem ani that the lechem used for the first night, the choyves matzah, must be strictly flour and water, as opposed to yain, v'shemen, and dvash that create a matzah shir. However, past that first night, where there's no requirement of lechem oini, so could a person produce his matzah using these materials? According to Rabbi Gamliel, you burn it immediately because meiperis can expedite the chametz process, and we're concerned about immediate chametz. According to Chacham, we're not so concerned. Go ahead and bake it and eat it. Now regarding using lukewarm water, and regarding lisisa, which is the soaking of the grain prior to crushing. So when it comes to using lukewarm water, a person on his own should not go ahead and create his matzah using lukewarm water, which can expedite the chametz process. When it comes to a mincha, we allow it, as the Gemara explains, because it's been Malkam's reason, although that the Kohanim themselves are not doing it, but the Yisrael is doing it in the presence of Kohanim, who look over to him and instruct him, make sure that his process will not produce chametz, and therefore there's no concern. When it comes to soaking lasisa, so minchas yachid, where the grain is soaked back at home, that carries a concern of chametz, and therefore should not be soaked. When it comes to a minchas tzibur, like minchas omer, where there's bezdin involved, the kehanim involved, in that case, we learn in a Mishnah that they would actually, in a brisa, they would actually go ahead and soak the kernels for the minchas omer. There's no concern of chametz. Continues the Gemara. So we learned about lechem oini. It has to be something which resembles a poor man's bread. So we discussed the content. Now we're going to discuss the design and the shape. Tan Rabbanan. Lechem oini. Prat lecholet, as opposed to matzah which was scalded. So So they would scald it with hot water and then bake it. It would have this chashivas look to it. Ula ashisha, as opposed to matzah, which is ashisha, a very large size, prominent looking piece of matzah. So that doesn't conform to oini, and therefore it's not kosher for matzah's mitzvah. Pas hadra, that's the case perhaps. A person could only be yotzei mitzvah's matzah with pas hadra. Rashi says, hadra means that the entire hider, the beauty was removed, meaning it's whole grain full of the chaff and the bran. So it's actually a euphemism. Hadar is nice and beautiful, so it's a euphemism. Pas hadra meaning the beauty was removed. It's full of the impurities. If it needs to be lechem oini, poor man's bread, perhaps, it has to really conform all the way. Tamad loima matzis riba. That's coming to include even this type of bread. Afilu kematzis shloima, even if it's matzah produced from refined flour, which was used by Shlomo HaMelech, that's okay. That's the case. What does lechem oini come to exclude? If you allow this high quality matzah, so what does lechem oini come to exclude? Prat l'chol l'ashisha, as opposed to the cholet and the ashisha, which are not your typical standard type of bread. So yeah, if it's high quality, just refined, that's okay as long as it's standard bread made from flour and water. But if it's cholut and ashisha, undergoes these special, unique processes which gives it that prominent look, then it doesn't conform to lechem oini and it's unsuitable for matzah's mitzvah. So cholut was the scalded one, ashisha is this large size loaf of bread which gives chashivus. Umay mashma dahayashisha lishna de chashivusa. How do you know that this ashisha is in reference to a jumbo-sized matzah, which has prominence? T'chsiv, vayechalek l'chol ha'am l'chol hamon Yisrael. This was when Shlomo HaMelech brought the Aron back to Ir David, actually David HaMelech. So he brought the Aron back to Ir David. So he handed out l'chol ha'am l'chol hamon Yisrael l'meish v'ad isha l'ish chalas lechem achas. So he gave him one loaf of bread. Va'ash parechad v'ashish achas. What does this mean? Ashper echad means a very large portion of meat. Echad mishisha bepar, 1/6 of a bowl. Ashisha is echad mishisha be'efa. It was such a large size baked item, it was 1/6 of an efa, huge. So you see that ashisha is a large sized baked good. Opliga de Shmuel, actually this interpretation of ashisha is in dispute of Shmuel. Shmuel, ashisha is actually referring to garba de chamra, this pitcher, this container with wine. T'chsiv v'yahave ashishi anovim, those who love the containers of wine. Okay, so time for a brief chazar of today's daf. We learned about the drasha using the pasuk lechem oini. So according to Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, that is applied to exclude ma'aser sheni, because oini, read as though it would be with an aleph, is referring to the time of aninos, and ma'aser sheni cannot be eaten when a person is an oinen. Therefore, the matzah as well cannot be produced using ma'aser sheni material. According to Rekiva, we focus on the ksiv of the pasuk lechem oni ayin nun yud, and therefore it's not coming to teach us anything about oini, about aninos. And therefore, according to him, ma'aser sheni is suitable for matzah's mitzvah. All agree that bikurim cannot be used. It needs to be something eaten all over the place. And regarding producing matzah using yayin shem and dvash, the first night, according to Rekiva, that doesn't conform to lechem oini. It needs to be simple ingredients, not enriched. Regarding the rest of the days of Pesach, according to Gamliel, it carries a concern of chametz. You have to burn it. According to Chacham, there's no concern. All agree that peishrin are unsuitable to make matzah, but when it comes to mincha, since it's b'makam is reason, there's no concern of chimutz. When it comes to soaking the kernels, when it comes to minchas yachid, which he does in the privacy of his home, he shouldn't do it. However, minchas omer, which is done in public, there's the bezin involved, there's no concern about chimutz. And we learned about lechem oini, and we had 3 applications. Number 1, regarding the content, the ingredients, it has to be pure flour and water. Number 2, regarding the contour, the shape, the design, it can't look overly chashev, prat l'cholot v'ashisha. And finally, we learned that lechem oini is also in reference to the activity done with the bread. Lechem she'oin alav dvarim harvei, which Rashi explains in reference to the Haggadah and the Halal, which are said in the presence of matzah.